You know, when we look around at the people in our lives, those closest to us, those we struggle with, and even those who come in and out of our story for just a moment, it can be easy to assume it's all just coincidence, that we met this person by chance or crossed paths with that one because of circumstance. But I want you to consider something deeper, something much more intentional. God chose them for you, not by accident, not by mistake, by design. You see, when God is orchestrating your life, and believe me, He's not only guiding your steps, He's guiding the people who walk beside you. That person who's been showing up when you're at your lowest, that mentor who speaks wisdom into your chaos, that friend who irritates you but never gives up on you. God didn't just allow them into your life. He placed them carefully, purposefully. And sometimes we don't recognize His hand in it right away because it doesn't always feel spiritual. Sometimes it feels messy. It feels inconvenient. But God is not restricted by what we feel. He works through what we need, and the people He chooses for you will always point to something bigger than you. Let me tell you something I've learned. God's choices often don't look like our choices. We might be drawn to people based on chemistry, similarity, or comfort. God, on the other hand, picks based on calling, development, and destiny. Think about it. When God picked people for Jesus' life, He didn't surround Him with scholars or kings. He placed Him among fishermen, doubters, tax collectors, and even a traitor. Why? Because purpose was greater than preference. God wasn't assembling a clique. He was building a movement. And when God chooses someone for your life, it's not just about how well they fit into your vibe. It's about how they fit into your calling. Some of the people God brings into your life are mirrors, showing you parts of yourself you couldn't see on your own. Others are sandpaper, refining you through friction, smoothing out your pride, your impatience, your insecurity. And some are anchors, holding you down when life tries to pull you under. It's not always obvious at first. Sometimes you only realize their purpose after a storm, after a crisis, after a season when you needed exactly who they were, even if you didn't know it at the time. That's how intentional God is. But here's the challenge. Sometimes we resist who God sends because they don't come in the package we expected. We think, surely this person can't be from God. They get on my nerves. They think differently. They push me. But God isn't concerned with your comfort. He's concerned with your growth. He's not looking to surround you with yes men or echo chambers. He'll send people who challenge your thinking, who stir up your spirit, who press you toward the version of yourself you've been afraid to become. And watch this, sometimes God will even use the difficult ones. Oh, I know you don't want to hear that. But yes, even the betrayers, the critics, the ones who walked away, because sometimes the rejection had to happen so the redirection could begin. Judas didn't derail Jesus. He helped fulfill prophecy. Don't be so quick to curse the difficult people that you miss their role in your refining. So what happens next when you start to really believe that God chose them for you? You stop chasing after validation and start listening for confirmation. You stop fighting divine appointments and start embracing the process. You begin to see the fingerprint of God not just on your dreams, but on your relationships. You stop asking, why are they in my life? And start asking, what is God showing me through them? And when you do that, when you align your heart with God's design, when you stop resisting who He placed and start recognizing their purpose, everything starts to shift. Your relationships gain clarity. Your frustrations make sense. Your heart opens to transformation, because now you're not just walking with people, you're walking in purpose with people who were chosen for you. Let me talk to you about something that doesn't always sit well with us, something that challenges our human tendencies and exposes our spiritual immaturity. It's this idea right here. God's choices for us are based on purpose, not preference. I know that sounds simple, maybe even cliche, but if you let it sink in, it'll start to shift the way you see the people around you. Because the truth is, if we had it our way, we'd always choose the easy people, the agreeable ones, the ones who make us laugh, say all the right things, and never rub us the wrong way. But that's not how God works. God is not in the business of catering to your comfort zone. He's in the business of cultivating your calling. And to do that, He will place people in your life who challenge your preference so you can walk fully in your purpose. That means sometimes God will send you the one who disagrees with you, not because they're wrong, but because they're sharpening your discernment. He'll connect you with someone who sees life from a different angle, not to frustrate you, but to stretch your perspective. And yes, sometimes He'll send people who are hard to love, not to wear you down, but to teach you what love really looks like when it's unconditional. See, we think the right people will always feel good. We assume that divine connections will come wrapped in peace and ease. But some of the most impactful people God will ever assign to your life will come with friction, discomfort, even tension, not because they're the enemy, but because God is using them to expose the parts of you that need His refining fire, the pride that needs to be humbled, the fear that needs to be confronted, the insecurity that needs to be healed. You might be praying for elevation, for breakthrough, for transformation, and God answers that prayer by sending you someone you didn't ask for, someone who makes you question, wrestle, reflect, someone who pulls things out of you you didn't know were in there, both good and bad. And because they don't fit your preference, you're tempted to push them away. But what if pushing them away is pushing away part of your process? I know that's not easy to hear, but it's necessary. Because when we keep choosing people based on preference, we end up building circles that look like us, think like us, and act like us, but don't grow us. And then we wonder why we're stuck, why our relationships are shallow, why we keep repeating cycles. It's because we're surrounding ourselves with comfort instead of calling. But let me tell you something, when you allow God to choose your people based on purpose, everything starts to shift. Suddenly your friendships aren't just about hanging out, they're about holding each other accountable. Your relationships aren't just emotional, they're spiritual. Your conversations go from surface level to soul deep, and you start to realize that the people God has chosen for you aren't just filling space in your life. They're building something with you, something eternal. Now don't get me wrong, it's not about abandoning discernment. I'm not saying every difficult person is sent by God. Some people do come into our lives to distract, derail, or deceive. But there's a difference between someone who brings chaos and someone who brings correction. One is there to harm you. The other is there to help you, even if it doesn't feel good in the moment. You've got to be willing to look past your emotional reaction and ask a deeper question: is there purpose here? Is this person challenging me because they're toxic or because I've been too comfortable? That's not easy, but spiritual maturity isn't about ease. It's about obedience. And sometimes obedience means embracing what you wouldn't have chosen for yourself, because you trust the one who did choose it for you. So no, it won't always feel good. You won't always click. You might even have moments where you want to walk away. But when you start seeing people through the lens of purpose instead of preference, you begin to value the friction as much as the favor. You begin to thank God not just for the ones who encourage you, but for the ones who equip you, challenge you, sharpen you. Because they were never sent to flatter you, they were sent to form you. That's why if you can lay down your preferences and pick up your purpose, you'll stop asking, why this person, and start saying, God, what are you doing through them in me? One of the hardest things to accept in life is that not everyone who starts with you is meant to stay with you. We don't like that. We want the people we love to walk with us forever, to be there through every season. But the truth is, God moves people in and out of our lives based on seasons. And if you try to hold on to someone God only assigned for a chapter, you'll miss what He's trying to write in the next one. The people God places in your life are not always permanent fixtures. They're seasonal instruments. They show up on divine schedule. They play their part, and when the time comes, God moves them, sometimes gently, sometimes suddenly, but always with purpose. We often pray for God to lead us, to shape us, to take us to the next level, and when He begins doing that, He doesn't just shift your surroundings, He shifts your circle, because certain blessings can't flow in the wrong company, certain mindsets can't survive in the wrong atmosphere, and certain relationships, no matter how familiar, can't go where God is trying to take you. It's not rejection, it's redirection. It's not punishment, it's pruning. See, we confuse loyalty with assignment. Just because someone's been around a long time doesn't mean they're anointed for your next. Just because you have history with someone doesn't mean you have destiny with them. That's why God in His mercy will begin to remove people who once made sense but now create confusion, not because they're bad people, but because the season has changed. And when the season changes, the relationships must shift with it. Think about nature. When autumn comes, the trees don't argue with God, they release the leaves, because holding on would hinder the process. The shedding isn't loss, it's preparation. And the same goes for us. There are people you've been trying to hold on to, who are no longer feeding your purpose. Conversations that used to give life now drain you. Connections that once felt divine now feel dry. That's not something to mourn, it's something to discern. Because if you don't release what God is trying to move, you delay what He's trying to do. There's a time to fight for relationships, but there's also a time to recognize when God is calling you forward, and everyone can't come. Some people were only sent to help you grow roots, others to help you rise. But when the assignment is over, peace won't remain where disobedience has taken root. And sometimes it's not them, sometimes it's you. You've changed. You've grown. You don't see things the way you used to. You're hungry for purpose now. You're focused on your calling. And that growth, that transformation, creates tension with people who are comfortable, staying where they've always been. But you can't shrink to keep people close. You can't mute your calling to make others comfortable. You were made to move. You were made to follow God's voice, even if it takes you out of familiar spaces and into faith-filled places. Now I know this part hurts. Nobody wants to feel like they're leaving people behind. But let me encourage you, God never subtracts without the intention to add. When He calls you away from something, He's preparing you for someone or something that aligns with your purpose in a deeper way. If He closed the door, it's because He's already opened another one. If someone walked away, it's because someone else is on their way. You just have to trust the season. And in that trust, stop trying to drag people into places they don't have the capacity to go. Stop forcing connections God has already disconnected. Stop praying for Him to bring them back when He's already made it clear they were part of your past. You don't need to dishonor them. You don't need to be bitter. You just need to release, let them go with love, and keep walking with obedience. Because when you embrace the rhythm of God's seasons, when you allow Him to plant, to prune, to shift and to send, you make room for the relationships that are meant to last, the ones that bear fruit, the ones that pour back, the ones that multiply purpose, not just moments. You'll start to notice that the right people show up right on time, not because you searched for them, but because you stayed in sync with God. So pay attention to the timing. Watch the patterns. Don't fight the flow. If the season is changing, let it change. One of the most overlooked truths in our walk with God is that He rarely develops us in isolation. Growth doesn't just happen in the quiet moments of prayer or in personal devotion. Those are vital, yes, but some of your greatest growth will come through the people God places in your life. And not just any people, the ones He chose, the ones who challenge you, the ones who see things in you that you can't see in yourself, the ones who push you toward purpose, even when you feel like pulling back. God uses people to sharpen you, to shape you, to stretch you. We love to talk about destiny, but we rarely talk about how destiny is developed in the context of relationship. Think about it. When God wants to do something significant in your life, He often doesn't just speak from the sky. He sends a person, someone with words, with presence, with accountability, someone who can walk with you through the valley and still point you toward the mountain, someone who sees both your potential and your pain and stays. That's the beauty of divine relationships. They're not just about companionship, they're about construction. God sends builders into your life, not just friends, people who will build your faith when it's weak, build your vision when it's blurry, build your confidence when it's been torn down by life. They don't just celebrate your highs, they invest in your growth. And if you're paying attention, you'll notice that they weren't sent to make you feel all the time. They were sent to make you grow. See, growth isn't always comfortable. It comes through correction, through friction, through accountability. And when God has chosen someone to walk closely with you, it's not just so you can laugh together, it's so you can grow together. There are lessons you won't learn until someone holds up a mirror. There are breakthroughs you won't reach until someone speaks the truth you didn't want to hear. And there are parts of your calling that will never be activated until the right person calls it out of you. But here's the challenge. We often resist the very people God sends to develop us because they don't always say what we want to hear. Maybe they challenge your excuses. Maybe they push back on your procrastination. Maybe they won't let you stay comfortable in dysfunction. And because it stings, because it feels personal, you're tempted to label them as critical or controlling. But what if they're just being obedient? What if God gave them the courage to confront what you've been avoiding because He knows you can't grow if you stay the same? Don't despise the people who tell you the truth in love. Don't distance yourself from the ones who won't let you settle. That might be the very voice God is using to push you into the next version of yourself. And let's be real, some of us prayed for growth. We asked for wisdom, discipline, elevation. But when God sends it in the form of a person who challenges us, we get offended instead of getting transformed. You've got to recognize when the growth is coming through the relationship, and you've got to be humble enough to receive it. It might be a friend who won't let you spiral, a spouse who keeps pointing you back to prayer, a mentor who calls out the laziness, a sibling in Christ who sees through them. These aren't just people in your life. These are instruments in God's hand. And let me tell you, some growth happens in private, but deep, sustainable, lasting growth often happens in connection. The word says, iron sharpens iron, not isolation sharpens iron, not comfort sharpens iron. Iron. That means there's contact, there's pressure, there's heat. And in that process there are sparks. But those sparks are a sign that something is happening. You're being refined. You're being strengthened. You're becoming who God created you to be. So don't just thank God for your blessings. Thank Him for the people who push you to grow into them. Don't just pray for elevation. Pray for the strength to receive the people who will prepare you for it. And when someone shows up in your life who loves you enough to hold you accountable, to speak life into your dry places, to call you higher when you're content staying low, recognize that's not just a person. That's a strategy from heaven. Lean into the relationships that stretch you. Honor the people who won't let you quit. Cherish the ones who see purpose when all you see is pain, because God is using them to grow you. There's something powerful that happens when you begin to see people not through your own eyes, but through the eyes of God. Because let's be honest, most of the time, we see people through the lens of our past, our pain, our preferences. We judge quickly. We categorize easily, and if someone doesn't fit into our expectations, we push them to the side. But here's what I've learned. When God chooses someone for you, it's not always obvious why at first. You might not see their value immediately. You might not even like them at first. But that doesn't mean they aren't assigned to your life for something divine. We've got to stop confusing familiarity with favor. Just because someone is familiar doesn't mean they're different cat. And just because someone is unfamiliar, maybe they're different, maybe they challenge you, maybe they don't fit into your mold, that doesn't mean they're not from Him. God isn't asking you to see people as they appear. He's asking you to see them as He sees them. Because if you only receive people based on surface impressions, you will miss kingdom connections. Some of the most anointed, most impactful, most life-changing people will come wrapped in packaging you didn't expect. They may come with rough edges. They may come from different backgrounds. They may not speak your language, but they carry your answer. And if you're not spiritually discerning, you'll reject a gift just because it's wrapped in something unfamiliar. I wonder how many of us have missed a divine connection because we were too focused on how someone looked, how they talked, how they carried themselves. We judged their outer shell and never took the time to ask, why did you place this person in my life? Let me tell you something. God will offend your expectations to reveal your heart. He'll place someone in front of you who doesn't line up with what you had in mind, just to see if your faith is bigger than your preferences, just to test if you're looking for comfort or if you're ready for calling. You see this all throughout Scripture. God's chosen vessels rarely came in the form people expected. David was the youngest, the smallest, overlooked by everyone, but he was the one anointed king. Ruth was a Moabite, a foreigner, yet she was the one who became part of the lineage of Jesus. Jesus himself was rejected because of how ordinary he looked. Can anything good come out of no? That's what they said, but what they didn't realize is that God often hides glory in what looks like nothing, and he still does it. He'll send someone into your life who doesn't look the part, but carries the word you need. He'll send someone who doesn't have the title, the platform, or the polish, but they've got the oil. And if you're too focused on the packaging, you'll walk away from what was meant to unlock your next season. So I'm challenging you. Start asking God to help you see people the way he sees them. Ask him to give you spiritual eyes, because natural eyes will fool you. Your natural mind. When this poetry, your emotions will label someone as not for you, when heaven has already assigned them to walk with you. And if you're not careful, you'll push away the very person God sent to bless you, build you, and break something up. It's time to look deeper. It's time to lean in and ask, God, what are you doing through this person? What do they carry that I need? What can I learn from them? Because sometimes the one you think you're supposed to teach is actually the one God sent to teach you. Sometimes the one you thought needed your help is the one carrying your healing. That's how God works. He flips expectations. He disrupts assumptions. He brings purpose through the most unexpected people. So before you dismiss someone, before you minimize their role in your life, ask yourself if maybe, just maybe, God saw something in them that you haven't seen yet, and if he chose them for you, you can trust that there's something in them worth discovering. When God connects you to the right people, those he himself has chosen for your life, it's never just about comfort, convenience, or companionship. It's about something far deeper. It's about alignment. It's about purpose. And when that kind of divine connection takes root, you begin to notice a shift in your mind, a shift in your direction, in how you walk, how you speak, how you see yourself and your calling. Because the right people don't just show up, they activate something in you. They awaken things you thought were dead. They stir gifts that were dormant. They call things out of you that fear had silenced. God didn't just choose them to walk with you. He chose them to unlock something in you. There's a divine chemistry, a spiritual moment that begins to form when the right people are in place. Suddenly you're dreaming again. You're praying with more fire. You're speaking with more authority. You're making moves you were once too afraid to try. And it's not because they did the work for you, but because they were positioned by God to remind you of who you really are. Some of you are in a place right now where your confidence feels weak, your vision feels cloudy, your passion feels buried, and you've been trying to figure it out. What if the answer isn't more striving? What if the answer is divine alignment? What if the shift you've been praying for is connected to the people you've been ignoring, or even pushing away? Because when you come into agreement with the people God has assigned to your life, things begin to move, not just externally, but internally. The depression lifts, the confusion breaks, the old cycles lose their grip. There's power in agreement, not just with God, but with the people he sent to walk with you. The enemy knows this. That's why he works so hard to sow division, to stir offense, to keep you isolated or attached to the wrong people, because he knows what you could become if you ever truly locked arms with the right ones, if you ever got into agreement with someone who sees your calling, if you ever stood beside someone who speaks life into your dry bones. He knows that a kingdom-aligned relationship is a threat to his agenda. So he'll do anything to keep you distracted, offended, disconnected. But when you discern what's really happening, you'll stop fighting the people God sent and start fighting for the connection. And I'll tell you this, it's not always going to feel easy. Alignment doesn't always mean agreement in every detail. Sometimes the ones God sends will challenge you, stretch you, and even correct you. But that tension is part of the transformation. You don't grow by only being around people who echo your every thought. You grow when you're around people who reflect God's truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Watch what happens when you start guarding those divine relationships. When you start praying over them, investing in them, honoring them, protecting the space where purpose flows. You'll notice that your steps get clearer, your pace gets stronger, your discernment sharpens, because you're no longer dragging relationships that were never meant to last. You're walking in step with those who were chosen, called and positioned for your assignment. There's nothing more powerful than people walking together under heaven's direction. People who don't compete but complete. People who don't drain you but develop. People who don't just tolerate your calling, but fight for it. You were never meant to do life alone. And you were never meant to figure it all out by yourself. God saw ahead. He chose voices, hands, hearts, and shoulders for you to lean on in the exact moments you'd need them. So stop questioning the connections God confirmed. Stop resisting what He's already revealed. Step fully into alignment. Honor the ones He sent. Let them sharpen you, pray with you, and walk beside you. And when you do, you won't just feel better. You'll walk bolder, dream bigger, love deeper, and with more purpose than you ever.